The Drava is one of the last European rivers where natural processes still prevail. It still carves its way through soft earth on its own. It creates and renews bars, steep banks, side arms and dead arms, all within the floodplain forest. This is home to many living creatures, from the elusive otter and the wary black stork to countless fish species. However, the Drava region has been inhabited since ancient times, with people gradually settling along its shores, drawn to its bounty. They have taken its floodplains, but in return, they've endured floods and erosion, which led them to tame the river. Due to river navigation, its meandering course has been straightened, and hydroelectric plants have transformed kilometers of its flow into concrete reservoirs. The Drava is now altered, and all its natural wealth hangs in the balance. A harsh winter has bound the Drava in ice. Snow and frost press down on the river. This is a difficult time when, alongside the extreme cold, food becomes scarce. Unexpectedly, animals are now gathering along the Drava. The deer now often cross the river in groups. By luck, the winter water level is low. But a low Drava freezes easily. Near Prylog and Midjimuri, the river is wide and strong, and parts remain flowing between ice flows. Despite the cold water and ice, birds are wintering here. Thousands of them have fled the even harsher cold and ice from northern Europe. These aren't true migrants heading south. They wander in search of unfrozen waters. Geese, ducks, and gulls dominate. The setting sun seems to warm them, but in reality, the cold is deepening. Large cormorants prefer to keep their feet dry, so they perch on trees. The real hustle begins at dusk. The birds return from nearby feeding grounds to sleep. In the middle of the water, they find safety and a peaceful resting place. The icy river water, after all, is safer than the land. Wave after wave, birds come from all directions. The water is already crowded. A long winter night follows. In winter, this landscape appears untamed, but as the snow melts in spring, a different reality emerges. This stretch of the Drava has been transformed into the vast reservoir of the Drava hydroelectric power plant. Held back by the dam, the river slows, expanding into a wide accumulation lake. At first, its waters are cradled by natural banks, only to meet the stark contrast of concrete edges. Drava is the final hydroelectric plant on the Drava. Upstream, over 20 large dams have reshaped the river's course. Yet, the Drava here is not entirely artificial. Alongside the straightened diversion channel of the power plant, the river's old path still flows, a surviving remnant of the natural waterway. In places, the Drava meanders freely, splitting into braided channels that carve through layers of sediment, offering a glimpse into the river's past, when its wild, unrestrained flow stretched across a much greater scale. With the river's gentle flow, life flourishes in abundance. On a warm spring dawn, as mist still clings to the water, a beaver takes advantage of the morning calm to feed. It grazes on aquatic plants. In winter, it relies on tree bark, felling entire riverside trees to reach its food. Unlike its relatives in other parts of the world, the beaver in Croatia rarely builds dams. A true water dweller, this skilled swimmer and diver finds shelter in burrows along the riverbank. Once extinct on the Drava, beavers were reintroduced in the late 20th century and have since spread successfully. Primarily nocturnal, this beaver will soon retreat to rest as daylight takes over. But for others, the day is just beginning. Grey herons emerge from the mist, stepping carefully through the shallows in search of fish, amphibians, or even the occasional snake. Anything they can catch and swallow whole. As the sun's first rays reach the water, swans also begin their morning ritual. Unlike the heron, this elegant bird is a vegetarian, gracefully upending itself to pluck aquatic plants from the riverbed. A rarer sight, the black stork prefers the stillness of the early morning, avoiding human presence. Unlike its white stork cousin, this elusive bird nests deep within dense forests, far from prying eyes. Unlike the patient heron, the black stork hunts with urgency, wading through shallow waters in pursuit of fish. Yet even its movements seem measured compared to the little egret, a master of aerial acrobatics. This agile hunter often joins forces with others, driving fish into the shallows. Sometimes, a much larger relative, the great egret, joins the scene, seizing the opportunity to snatch an easy meal with slow, deliberate strides. Only true adventurers venture into the hidden corners of the old Drava. To reach them, one must navigate winding channels, push through dense forests, and wade through thick mud and swampy terrain. This is the Drava's very own jungle. In summer, this wilderness becomes a paradise for those seeking both adventure and relief from the heat. For the young explorers from nearby villages, the old Drava is a backyard full of mystery. Secret animal trails, hidden beaches, and rugged, untouched shores waiting to be discovered. On scorching summer days, the river's cool waters provide the perfect escape. Diving, splashing, and leaping into the refreshing depths is a time-honored tradition, a simple joy passed down through generations. After the day's adventures, a fire is lit and corn is roasted over the open flames. The rising smoke serves a dual purpose, keeping swarms of mosquitoes at bay as the night slowly settles over the river. Beyond Donja Dubrava, the waters of the old Drava and the hydroelectric canal merge again. Here, the river regains its full strength, flowing freely toward Legrad and into the Veliki Pajut Special Ornithological Reserve. A narrow stretch of land cradled between the Drava and the approaching Mora. In this untamed landscape, nature takes control once again. A labyrinth of ancient river channels, gravel banks, muddy lagoons, marshes, and dense forest stretches across the reserve. The terrain is nearly impenetrable, reminiscent of a jungle. It's no wonder this place has earned the name Croatia's Amazon. This wilderness is home to majestic deer, thriving in the vast woodlands where shelter and food are plentiful. Water is no obstacle. They wade effortlessly through the river's natural channels, at home in this dynamic ecosystem. Their diet consists of tender willow branches and fresh green leaves. And after a feast, rest is essential, if only the relentless mosquitoes would allow it. Roe deer also roam these lush forests, drawn to the rich greenery that flourishes in this untouched paradise. Veliki Pajut is a sanctuary of peace, where wildlife gathers undisturbed in open meadows, a hidden haven where nature reigns supreme. Soon, the Drava is joined by its largest tributary, the Mora. Here, the crystal-clear waters of the Drava intertwine with the Mura's murkier flow, as if a new river is being born. Yet, this confluence hasn't always been in the same place. Until 2011, it was nearly a kilometre downstream. After years of gradual shifts, the Drava finally broke through, carving a new path to meet the Mora. Trees were uprooted, riverbanks vanished beneath the current, evidence that the Drava still has the power to reshape its course, shifting through soft gravel and sand. This is not a rare event. Historical maps reveal that in just the past 100 years, the Drava and Mora have altered their confluence multiple times. More than 3 centuries ago, river shifted its course, relocating the town of Legrad from Međimurje to Podravina. At the time, Legrad was one of the most important settlements in this part of Croatia, thriving as a bustling center of trade. But the same river that once brought prosperity would ultimately reshape its fate. Although the Drava has always attracted people with its bounty, erosion steadily claimed land. Even entire villages were lost. That's why, in times when farming was the backbone of life and every patch of land was precious, efforts began to tame the river. The first regulations date back to the 17th century. Stone, wood, and willow branches were used to reinforce the banks. Technology at the time wasn't advanced enough for large-scale works, but gradually, the river began to yield to human hands. A major driver behind controlling the Drava was river transport. In an era without railways or cars, rivers were vital trade routes. Northern Croatia was then part of the Habsburg monarchy, and the Drava became a crucial corridor connecting Austria with its lands. By the mid-17th century, the river took on an even greater role, carrying large shipments of goods, grain, and even weapons. Ports like Varaždin, Dornija, and Legrad played an important part in the region's economy. The cargo travelled aboard wooden boats known as shakic with a crew of 6, a helmsman and 5 assistants. The Drava was also vital for timber rafting, or floating, with its main hub in the town of Donja Dubrava. By the late 18th century, the Drava's ever-changing course, along with its islands and sandbanks, made navigation difficult. On top of that, its meanders stretched the journey, so efforts were made to straighten the river and shorten the route. Large-scale regulation works began in the mid-19th century, cutting off many of those meanders. Today, large oxbow lakes like Ješkovo in Podravina or the one by Bijelo Brdo in Slavonia are remnants of those old bends. Križnica, a Croatian village on the left bank, is known for these ancient meanders. Overgrown today, they now sit beside houses and fields. To this day, a small river ferry is the only way to bring vehicles and goods to Križnica. The central stretch of the Drava, from Križnica to Baranja, is now largely straightened. It's estimated that the river's total length has been reduced by nearly a fifth. Even today, larger vessels can navigate the Drava up to Osijek. Still, the Drava was never fully tamed, especially in the Podravina region. Strengthened by the waters of the Mura, the Drava gains even more power. Here, it forms the border with Hungary, a boundary that, during the Cold War, became part of the Iron Curtain. This very isolation helped preserve the river's wild nature. Erosion is part of the river's natural rhythm. Lowland rivers gradually shift their course over time, and this very process is vital for biodiversity. In its natural state, the Drava steadily erodes its banks. Yet, as steep banks crumble away, new ones are born, sandy and gravelly bars on the opposite side of the river. This constant change creates a mosaic of habitats: steep banks, gravel bars, sidearms, and oxbow lakes, each home to a wealth of life. The Drava's eternal dance of destruction and creation ensures that new habitats are always forming. On one side of the river, a freshly eroded, steep bank rises. Sand trickles down, the slope still crumbling. Before plants claim it, these cliffs become home to birds. Sand martins, colonial birds by nature, seek out exactly these kinds of banks. Their height and steepness offer protection from most predators. A fox may pace at the base of the colony, but it's a futile hunt. Not only are the nests perched high, but each one is tucked deep into the earth. In spring, sand martins dig tunnels up to a meter long, with eggs and later chicks safely at the end. Only the rare snake, able to slither up and in, poses a real threat, but that's unusual. A few weeks later, the chicks are old enough to crawl to the tunnel entrance, waiting eagerly for food. Hungry and demanding, they need constant feeding, but luckily food is close and plentiful. The parents hunt tiny insects hovering above the water. A single pair can catch hundreds of mosquitoes a day. Sharing the colony, you'll often find the bee-eater. True to its name, it hunts bees, but also many other flying insects. In flight, the bee-eater is fast and precise. Before swallowing a dangerous wasp, it must first subdue it with a sharp blow. To win a mate, the male bee-eater must prove himself by offering food to the female in a courtship ritual, a gift before mating. Like sand martins, bee-eaters also nest deep inside earthen tunnels. On the opposite side of the river, during low water, parts of the Drava's bed lie exposed. These are gravel bars in the form of shore extensions or even small islands. In the upper reaches, the riverbed is mostly gravel, but downstream from Krisnica, sand takes over. Gravel bars come in countless shapes, constantly shifted, destroyed, and reshaped by the river's flow. This is a habitat of extremes, scorched by the sun, flooded by the river. Yet life still clings on, refusing to surrender. Pioneer plants push up through the bare gravel and sand. Knotweed, dock, and other hardy species trap silt and become the first threads of future soil. Over time, other plants follow, eventually even trees. Fast-growing willows soon colonize these bars, forming dense thickets within a year, already a meter tall. In just a decade, a mature forest will stand here. For wild ducks, these gravel bars are perfect resting spots, where they can warm up after swimming in the cold water. They're common visitors, along with ever-present herons. The river also washes up plants and tiny creatures onto the bare sandbars. A feast for birds. Along the water's edge, they search for tasty morsels. One of these regulars is the white wagtail. The blackbird also makes an appearance. And then there are the shanks, wading birds with long legs that make walking through mud and shallow water easy, probing with their slender beaks to find worms. After a good meal, it's time for a wash and a rest. Even the northern lapwing treats the gravel bar like its own personal bathhouse. All these birds come and go from the gravel bars as needed, but for some, these bars are the only home they know. The little ringed plover scurries across the gravel like a tiny runner. It's a strong flyer, but it feels most at ease with its feet on the stones. Like the others, it gathers small creatures along the water's edge. When it stands still, its colors blend perfectly with the pebbles around it. But today, food is not the priority. Its attention is fixed on a female. After a quick courtship display, a march almost military in style, mating follows. Little ringed plovers nest directly on the bare gravel. They scrape a shallow dip with no grass or cover. Not because they enjoy discomfort, but because this is their best defense. Their eggs look just like pebbles, making them nearly invisible to predators. Sadly, people sometimes unknowingly step on nests during the breeding season. In addition to camouflage, plovers have another trick to protect their eggs. They often pretend to sit on a fake nest, luring predators away from the real one. Sometimes, they even act injured, dragging a wing to look like easy prey. While the little ringed plover prefers peace and quiet, other gravel bar nesters are much more social. The common tern nests in noisy colonies of several dozen pairs. With so many birds around, silence is impossible. Their nests are little more than shallow scrapes in the gravel, decorated with a few blades of grass. But terns don't need to hide their eggs, not with so many sharp eyes and even sharper beaks, keeping watch. Any intruder is met with an aggressive aerial attack. After about 3 weeks of incubation, the chicks hatch. Now the parents must work fast to feed them as the spring flood is on its way. Water levels are slowly rising, and the unpredictable river could surge at any moment. Terns hunt small fish, which the Drava offers in abundance. Shallow waters are their hunting ground, where they can easily spot their prey. A sudden splash hints at fish activity below. Terns hover, scanning the water, then dive headfirst in a dramatic plunge. And then, the all-out assault begins. They emerge triumphantly, fish in beak, and head straight for the colony. Not every dive is successful, but they catch enough to keep their hungry chicks fed. The youngest still struggle to swallow their meals. Alongside the common tern, the edges of the colony sometimes shelter the rare little tern. Only a handful of pairs nest along the entire Drava. To win his mate, the male little tern must first prove his worth as a skilled fisherman, feeding her before they mate. After laying her eggs, the female still receives occasional meals from her partner. Life in the colony also comes with a daily ritual, evening grooming, ensuring feathers are ready for the next day's flights. But life upon the gravel bar is a gamble, and the survival of the young can be threatened at any moment. As late spring arrives, the Drava River begins to rise. The gravel banks sit low, and every centimetre of water creeping higher spells growing danger for the nests. Spring rains awaken, filling the river's bed. Storms become more frequent and fierce. But the greatest threat flows down from the distant mountains. The Drava is born in the Italian Alps, near the Austrian border. In late spring, thick layers of snow and ice, piled up through the long winter, begin to melt. Mountain streams swell with icy torrents, rushing down to feed the Drava. The river itself swells, turning murky with sediment. As the waters rise, they stir up sand and mud, gaining strength enough to tear loose massive boulders. Not just water flows now, sediment travels with it. Light grains of sand drift with the current, while heavier stones tumble and bounce along the riverbed. Rocks crash against each other, shattering into smaller fragments. They scrape and grind, becoming ever smoother, shrinking into pebbles. And so, the Drava carries vast loads of water and debris down into the plains of Podravina. The tern colony is swallowed by the flood. Only the oldest and strongest chicks survive. Luckily, they have grown just enough to swim for their lives. Such is nature's way. Not all will make it. Other creatures, too, cling to survival. A snail finds refuge atop a fragile branch, while smaller creatures scramble to the tallest blades of grass. Floods endanger not only birds on the gravel bars and snails. They have always been a force humans feared as well. History books hold stories of destruction reaching back to the 1600s, though the river itself has seen countless more. The village of Dornai near Koprivnica was struck several times. One tragic flood still echoes through the parish records of Peter and Etz from the year 1827. On June 11th, St. Barnabas's Day, the Drava turned violent by nightfall. From Dornai toward Hlibin along the state road, the river surged like a sea set loose. The upper part of the village, stretching towards Sigetets, vanished under dark water. Families fled their homes, clutching children, driving cattle, dragging whatever could be saved. Their cries filled the air as some escaped eastward, others toward vineyards and nearby villages, forced into a harsh, uncertain life. What can I say of the fields that shimmered like a silver lake, teeming with fish instead of grain? O Lord, shield us from storms and thunder that awaken the wrath of the Drava and drown our land. Together with erosion, floods uprooted entire villages. In the late 1700s, the people of Dornai began leaving their land behind. They crossed the river and settled new grazing lands to the north. That is how the villages of Gotolovo and Gola came to be. Floods are less common now, thanks to embankments raised over the past 40 years. But the Drava still remembers its ancient path, as the flood of 2023 made clear. Like erosion, flooding is a natural force born from rain and melting snow and ice in the Alps. That water cannot simply vanish into thin air, nor can the earth drink it fast enough, while the riverbed is far too narrow. It is vital to distinguish between flooding as a natural process and flooding as a source of human loss. Drawn by the river's gifts and its fertile plains, people settled on flood-prone ground, inching ever closer to the water. Floods, in truth, are the price of progress, a civilization's allergic reaction. For millennia, high waters spilled into natural floodplains. They filled lagoons, side arms, oxbow lakes, low hollows, even forests. Willows, especially the white willow and basket willow, endure standing in water for nearly 100 days. White willow grows aerial roots that let it breathe, while poplars have bark dotted with pores, tiny mouths that drink the air. This whole ecosystem depends on floods to survive. Without them, it could not exist. Where settlements need floodwaters to rush past, nature desires the opposite. If the river has space to flood freely in the wild, it eases the burden on the main channel, lowering flood risk downstream. Meanwhile, the river can carve its course through erosion, reshaping habitat and nurturing biodiversity. Dikes play a vital role, shielding people and their homes. The best defense pairs modern engineering with preserved floodplains, guided by constant monitoring and quick response. Along the way, water slowly filters down, purified and feeding underground reserves. The Drava's floodplain is one of the largest underground water stores, locked within deep layers of gravel. Kopacki Reach stands as a shining example of flood protection working hand in hand with nature. It is a vast floodplain, stretching almost to the doorstep of Osijek, the largest Croatian city along the Drava. Fed by both the Danube and the Drava, it floods each early spring, its edges guarded by towering dikes. The Danube, Europe's mightiest river, flows broad and heavy here. In flood season, the Danube turns milky and pale, while the Drava runs darker and deeper. These rivers breathe life into Kopacki Reach through countless natural channels, pushing water far into the lowland. Floodwaters drown almost everything, leaving only the tallest reeds to break the surface. White willows rise like islands in the endless expanse of water. In truth, Kopacki Reach is a sprawling wetland, alive with birds beyond counting. Geese gather in great flocks, calling across the skies. This is paradise for amphibians and reptiles alike. European pond turtles bask on fallen logs, soaking up the sun. Wild boar thrive in the soft, marshy ground. They wade through the shallows, rooting for clams and tubers hidden in the mud. When summer comes, the waters retreat, revealing muddy meadows. Only the deepest channels and lowest pools remain. Along the drying banks, animals gather, feasting on what the flood left behind. Here, floods are not a threat, but a gift. Without them, none of this abundance could exist. In Podravina too, the floodplain stretches wide, wrapped in dense forest. It is a tangled realm of willows and poplars, a woodland that feels like a true jungle. Unlike oak or beech forests, this one is left to nature's will, so trees often fall with age. Common hops weave thick curtains between trunks, cloaking the woods in green. Dogwood, elder, and guelder rose blanket the forest floor below. What little space remains bursts with goldenrod and Himalayan balsam in summer. With so many places to hide, the forest hums with life, countless insects, spiders, and tiny creatures. They feed a host of birds like tits, thriving in this feast of food and water. For woodpeckers, this place is a paradise. In the soft, aging trunks of willow and poplar, they uncover insects beneath the bark. But these birds are opportunists. One woodpecker finds a hidden nest of long-tailed tits. It seizes the helpless chicks and swallows them whole. In spring, the whole forest trembles with drumming beaks. Males hammer loudly to mark their territory and announce the breeding season. With powerful beaks, they carve nest holes deep into the soft wood. There, their eggs and chicks are safe from unwelcome guests. Once abandoned, old nest holes shelter other birds, giving woodpeckers a vital role in the floodplain forest. In early autumn, when morning fog drapes the Drava's jungle, the woods become a place of quiet mystery. The forest is crisscrossed by countless channels, cutting through like quiet veins. These side arms split off from the main river, with gentler currents and shallower depths. During floods, they too swell with water, merging forest and river into one. This is a world caught between land and water. Plants flourish both in and along these channels. In spring, yellow iris lines the banks, joined by marsh marigold. Slow water and lush vegetation lure the fish. By late spring, many species slip into these backwaters to spawn. The gentle splash of spawning fish breaks the silence. Fertilized eggs cling to underwater plants or hide beneath the gravel. This keeps them safe from predators and the river's pull. Tiny fish hatch here, sheltered from the hungry jaws that patrol the fast mainstream. These nurseries are vital to the river's fish, making the Drava home to Croatia's richest fish community. So far, 70 species have been recorded in these waters. But for young fish, danger lurks from above. Kingfishers perch patiently on branches, diving like arrows when prey comes close. Thanks to this bounty, kingfishers often nest in these side arms, where the banks rise steep and high. Many other creatures share this gift of land and water. Some, like herons, visit only briefly to feed. Others, like frogs, arrive to breed and then disappear again, but some make this place their permanent home. For its sheer wealth of life, these channels are among the most precious habitats of lowland rivers, and they reveal if a river still truly lives. When a sidearm loses touch with the main river and stops flowing, a new world is born, the Oxbow Lake. Often, it curves like a crescent, a shape inherited from the meandering river that once shaped it. Some are wrapped in green, like Chambina in Podravina. Others lie open, like Ješkovo near Gola. Around the ancient Drava in Budakovac, a whole village took root beside a lost channel. Near Bielo Bardo in Slavonia, the oxbows sprawl wide and wild. Though softened by time and plants, the old steep and shallow banks still quietly tell their story. Thick reeds cling to the gentler shore where the meander once curved. Cattails join them, and in the shallows, sedges and aquatic plants weave dense mats. Entering the oxbow is no easy feat. Mud, water, and razor-edged reeds guard the way. Floating plants, like water lilies, claim the surface, hiding the water below. Anchored deep in the mud, their tough stems stretch up, bending with the current. The white water lily dazzles with its delicate blooms. Its cousin, the yellow water lily, offers smaller flowers with golden hearts. This is a true underwater jungle, where plants jostle for space, especially spiked water milfoil. Its tiny flowers break the surface, barely seen. A carnivorous plant also lurks here, the bladderwort. Its thread-like stems carry traps, tiny bladders ready to catch unsuspecting prey. These wetlands brim with fish. A young pike, no more than a shadow now, will one day rule these still waters. Until then, it feasts on bleaks, who rely on numbers to survive. Ducks, coots, herons, and other wetland birds live here year-round. Among the reeds, smaller birds hide, and the loudest voice belongs to the great reed warbler. Its raspy call echoes through the stalks, but its brown plumage blends perfectly with the reeds. In the mud, footprints reveal a secretive predator, a regular visitor to oxbows and channels alike, the otter. Here, it finds plenty to eat. A masterful diver and fisher, it enjoys its catch hidden from view. Male green frogs battle not only with loud croaks, but also by wrestling. They leap onto rivals, determined to become the king of the pond. Insects and tiny creatures thrive here too. Especially rich is the world of dragonflies whose larvae live on the bottom. Mosquito larvae swarm by the thousands in the warm, shallow water. The richness of wetlands rivals even tropical rainforests, and Drava's oxbows stand among the very richest. Hydropower plants now threaten to erase these habitats entirely. In Croatia, the Drava has been tamed into channels and reservoirs almost all the way to Donja Dubrava. Once, this was a braided river, splitting into countless arms. In low water, side channels cut through gravel beds and floodplains like capillaries in a living body. That endless web of channels, oxbows, forest, and river created extraordinary richness. Today, much of that world is drowned beneath a flat, lifeless reservoir, with only a diversion canal and the old Drava flowing side by side. Only when the reservoir is drained for maintenance, the old landscape flickers back into view. Hydropower leaves its mark far downstream. Each day, sudden waves of water surge through, raising the river a full meter within hours. This chaos confuses the fish, especially during spawning in the backwaters. Trapped by falling water, they become stranded in puddles, or dry land. Terns nesting on gravel bars live with this daily threat. These water pulses also speed up bank erosion, forcing human intervention to hold the banks in place. The dams also block the flow of sediment, especially gravel. Without fresh sediment, the Drava cuts deeper into its bed, lowering both the river and groundwater. Floodplain forests begin to wither. Especially the Rapash forest in Podravina is at risk. As the river sinks lower, side channels dry up faster, losing their connection to the main flow. Worst of all, the river's natural rhythm is broken. No new steep banks or gravel bars form, no new side arms or oxbows emerge. What habitats remain are aging, slowly falling apart. Because of all this, combined with regulation and gravel mining, the Drava's natural world is deeply endangered. The dam gave people electricity and helped tame major floods, but the problem was never fully solved. Even recent years show the river still floods. New hydropower plants are planned, especially in Podravina, where the Drava guards its greatest treasures, bird colonies, sidearms, and oxbows. Even if no new dams are built, the Drava is already fading. In the end, the river's fate rests in the hands of those who live along its banks, and the experts who study its flow. For centuries, people have been drawn to the river's wealth, balanced between fear and awe. Since the first people arrived, they quietly took what the river offered. Its bounty of animals filled their tables with food. Later, as settlements grew more permanent, the river gave much more. Water for washing, reeds for roofs, and a trade route for commerce. Among the gravel, the Drava carried a different treasure, tiny grains of gold washed down from distant Alps. To supplement what little they earned from the land, locals turned to the river, panning for gold. Gold fever swept this river for centuries, but the peak came at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries. The village of Donji Vidovac became the heart of this golden trade, with 125 households working the river. Finding the right spot took skill built over a lifetime. Panners used tilted wooden tables, coaxing gold from the gravel. It was back-breaking work, often standing waist-deep in freezing water. Yet no one could resist the shimmer of almighty gold. For all it gave, the river always took something in return. It swallowed land, flooded fields, and claimed the lives of many who ventured too close. Of all the dangers, it was the drownings in Drava's swift, unpredictable waters that gave birth to the legend of the water spirits, watermen. With long hair and a tangled beard, his fearsome green figure, cloaked in moss and water plants, struck terror into all who knew his name. He lurked beneath the surface, waiting for careless fishermen or reckless swimmers, pulling them down with his monstrous strength. Those who drowned became his servants, bound forever to the river's depths. The waterman was not alone. His female companions were equally terrifying. Ghostly and green, cruel to the core. Like sirens of the sea, they lured the unwary, sometimes transforming into stunning beauties to seduce their prey. But not all mythical beings were dark and cruel. Some, though mischievous, were radiant and kind. River fairies were said to be breathtaking maidens with flowing golden hair, dressed in gowns as white and airy as mist. They made their homes in forests and by the water's edge, keeping their distance from humans, appearing only in rare glimpses. They could fly, shift into birds, become mist, flowers, or even clouds. Their powers were so great, they could bend nature to their will, calling storms and rain, hurling hail, or guarding crops from harm. In days before electricity, countless floating mills along the Drava ground grain from the rich fields of Slavonia and Podravina. A replica of one still floats today, not on the Drava, but on the nearby Mura. But the mills are gone. Only a few river ferries remain, the last traces of the old way to cross the river. With technology came distance, turning the river into nothing more than an industrial resource. The old awe faded into fear, a threat to be fought and controlled. It is no surprise so many European rivers lost their pulse, reduced to canals or reservoirs. At best, nature became a leisure pursuit, a pastime. In summer's heat, the cool Drava offers relief. Swimming spots dot the river's length, from its source to its mouth. For years, the Halash Chada at the Mura confluence was the best-known beach, alongside OCX's famous Kopika. The clear waters invite both adventure and play. When the summer crowds retreat, the Drava belongs mostly to fishermen. Fishing is an ancient bond between human and river. Though no longer essential for survival, that primal thrill, the pulse of a fish in the hand, remains. Photographers come hunting too, their lenses aimed at wildlife instead. Capturing nature's secrets in the Drava's tangled forest is no easy task. It takes hours crouched in silence, moving like a ghost, Yet wildlife photography only grows more popular, driven by the timeless call of the wild. The Drava has always been a muse. Science, too, speaks of the need for a new balance between people and nature. It records the vanishing colonies of terns and sand martins, the decline of fish and insects. In their place, it notes the arrival of alien species, uninvited guests. But science does more than document. It offers solutions, ways to reconcile human needs with the river's right to breathe. The Drava needs space, room to erode, to flood, to move within its levees. Wherever possible, floodplains should be widened, restoring the river's freedom. Despite a century of seeing nature through a technological lens, some rivers survived. Modern society slowly rediscovers the value of rivers, not just for wildlife, but for itself. And so the Drava stands at a crossroads, a future stripped of its treasures, or a chance to protect what remains.